Greetings fellow mammals, back to the ARs with this one. To unlock the M416 you need to get 100 kills and assists with the PPX and 60 kills with assault rifles, or do 60 revives. This might be the easiest challenge yet, but if you want to make it even easier, watch my bot farm video. When you completed these I got this loadout for you, and since they recently added a new suppressed short barrel to this weapon, we will definitely have to talk about that outdated E-tier placement now. So let's get into it. Of course, when we look at the charts we will have the new short barrel equipped, because otherwise it will be quite a depressing sight. But now we can get this performance right here with standard ammo, although naming it is basically irrelevant since we don't have any other options anyway. So this is it. Looks quite alright. A 5 bullet to kill range for 75 meters with a decent time to kill. Nothing outstanding, but nothing to complain about either. So for the loadout we obviously want the extended mag, then the normal one, and then the also newly added underloaded magazine. The menu description tells us that this new magazine type improves accuracy while moving, and that is true. Yeah, I was surprised too. I don't have any data mine values to check the stuff definitively though, so I can only give you a rough estimate on the numbers here. But from comparing it to the grips and other attachments, which I do have the data for, that came out to be somewhere in the range of 5 to maybe 10%. Most likely it's closer to the lower end though. So the question is, are you willing to ditch 41 rounds for 26 in order to increase your moving accuracy by possibly 6 or 7%? The answer to that should be a resounding absolutely not, for hopefully obvious reasons. So let's move on. For the barrel there's only one correct option, the short barrel. Nothing else here is worth using, especially because this one also provides 15 meter stealth since it was grafted from the PP heavy suppressor, just without nerfing your damage anymore, so there are quite literally zero reasons to use any of the other suppressors. Underneath we get a whole new load of options since this is the first time we are looking at a vault weapon. On this one we have new launchers and a bunch of new shotguns too. So, are any of these worth using? Let's go over the launchers first. What do we have here? We got a high explosive launcher. Those are usually okay, but not great. Then we have smoke. Obviously this is great. Followed up by a rather questionable one, the buckshot launcher, which is essentially a one-round shotgun attachment, but the damage really isn't great, not even compared to the ones we will get to here in a second. So I don't really see the point in this thing. Maybe someone among you can enlighten me here, but for now I do not recommend using this one. Following the buckshot launcher we have the LVG, which is apparently often mistaken for an anti-vehicle launcher. That is not the case. This is not intended to be used against armor. What this thing is essentially another high explosive launcher, but instead of directly exploding on impact, it bounces around first. So it's good for clearing buildings or tunnels and stuff like that. Enclosed spaces where you might not have a direct impact angle on the enemy. So it's a very niche use case type of attachment, but for certain maps specifically like Redacted or Haven, it could come in quite handy. And now we have reached the shotguns. These all come with magazines that hold 6 rounds and they essentially work like pump actions, meaning you shoot your shot, then you have to rechamber and then you can shoot once again. Different to regular primary shotguns on this attachment, this process is much slower though, so using them is very much high risk, high reward. Hopefully I had some clips with them in the background so you could get a good feel for that. Ultimately though, the flechette ones, or dart as they are called here, are not that great, and it's also very unlikely you will get a penetration double kill with a one-shot attachment shotgun. That's just too many stars that would have to align right there, so I would rather go with the regular reliable buckshot version with the higher damage. This is actually a pretty decent shotgun in itself, it just has a very slow rate of fire comparably. The slugs here once again have no headshot multiplier, so yes, you can two-shot across the entire map, but that's just not for me, and I'm not sure the accuracy is good enough for that purpose anyway. The last version, the frag rounds, are also more of a gimmick, I'd say. I wouldn't use them, but if you feel like trolling people, I guess this is kinda funny, but certainly not efficient. So before we take our pick from these newcomers, let's get the basics done. Luckily we have every single grip to our disposal here, so of course I'll take my LWG one. LS1 laser for the others, then the M26 buckshot for close quarters moments, and the M320 smoke launcher in the third slot. You could also consider using the bipod, but as you know, that stuff is not for me. For the scopes I use the red dot, thermal, and the M22 3.5X to avoid scope glint, and that's the loadout. So, E tier, that has to change, but by how much? With this newly added short barrel, the M416 has become a 1-to-1 performance clone of the M16A3, and that one is currently sitting in C tier, yet unreviewed though, so you could come to the conclusion that this one also has to move up to C tier, because they are equal now, right? Well, only at first glance. So yes, Yes, the ranges are the same, the rate of fire is the same, the damage is the same. That's all correct, but then it starts to differ. For example, on the M416 you need the short barrel to even become equal, which essentially forces you to use that one, making all other barrel attachments useless. On the M16 you get this performance by default, meaning you could choose whatever barrel attachment you want, and we also get a heavy suppressor on it, so we don't even have to miss out on the 15-meter stealth if we really want that. Underneath we also have access to the same launchers and shotguns, and we also get the same magazine options. But overall the M16 has a much faster bullet velocity, which always helps a little, and even with the heavy suppressor, that velocity is still higher than the M416 with its short barrel, so in no way does it ever beat the M16 on that front. On top of that, the M16 is also a bit more accurate. Both of them really don't win any prizes in that regard, but between them you do notice the difference. The only downside I can think of for the M16 is the lack of a regular red dot once again. Of course that weighs heavier than anything I mentioned before to me personally, but from an objective point of view it should be close to relevant in comparison. So to conclude, you could say the M16 is basically the big brother of the M4. It can do all the same things, but slightly better in almost every aspect. Unfortunately I haven't re-ranked it yet, but I think I probably won't move the M16 because nothing about it changed since I put it there. The problem is I do not want to put the M4 into D tier, because in my mind, thinking about school grades, D tier means you just barely passed the test. And that is surely not the case. This weapon is fine, it's just not great in any way. So C tier sounds exactly right. You passed, but you won't get $5 from grandma for that grade. So C tier it is. Maybe C minus. And the M16 should be considered C plus, because unfortunately I don't think it will make it into B tier. But we will see when the time comes. That's it for today. Don't forget to vote, poll is in the description and pinned comment as usual, and let me know what you want to see next down below. I will see you on the battlefield. Sorrow out.